Good afternoon, Seattle. My name is Tiffany Brinkley, and I am a financial professional here in the Seattle area. And I know most of you guys are stuck at home due to this whole COVID issue, and or maybe your jobs have either laid you off or just having you guys stay home until they get things figured out. But I wanted to let you know that what I do for our community is considered essential business. And so I'm out here to make sure that you guys are being brought financial information to help you move forward in life, make sure that your assets are protected, your families are protected, and you put together strategies to make sure that your health is taken care of if something were to happen. And so we'll be going over 15 minutes of financial information. Definitely do your own research about the things I'll be covering, but you can always reach out to me as well if you want some more information. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, well, before we get going with today's segment, I want to make sure that we cover this disclaimer. This segment is educational in nature, designed to share and encourage dialogue around financial concepts, news, strategies, and tips, often disseminated by various media outlets or taught by industry educators. My goal is simply to provide a means to uplift your families. Whether you're a professional or a business owner, you're likely seeking to protect your family, health, and your wealth. But you definitely need to be responsible for your own financial enlightenment. Do your own research. Stay positive and keep an open mind. There's going to be so much information coming at you. This presentation should not be construed as offering investment, tax, or legal advice. Certainly consult with a trusted licensed financial professional for proper guidance with your personal circumstances. Now with that, as you guys are probably all aware, we were not taught financial literacy in school. And this quote says so. It takes a lot of work and time to change your thinking and to become financially literate. And if you really think about what that means, in our community especially, information has been kept from us for so many generations, and that's evident just in the status of how we are economically within our own communities. If you look at this slide here, A Nation Divided, right, up here on the left-hand side, it talks about Black or African households that have significantly less access to important savings vehicles. It's pretty important to note that in white households, when you're talking about something as important as retirement, 65 or greater, 65% of them or more are actually doing something to prepare for retirement, whereas in our communities, less than 40%. Homeownership, as you see, is over 70%, whereas it's about 41% in our communities. Business ownership at about 20% for them, whereas it's less than 8% for us. Martin Luther King said there's nothing new about poverty, right? What is new is that we now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty, but the real question is whether we have that will. And you have to ask ourselves, what are we actually doing to lift ourselves out of this situation? There was some research that came out that showed that whether we all started at the top equally, ethnically, with white people as far as our wealth, we would still end up, many of us, down as poor adults. Right? And so you have to ask yourself, why would that be the situation? Is it systematic? Is it our own choice and how we deal with growing and building our assets and protecting them? Who knows, right? But this is Financial Literacy Awareness Month. You need to know every April, financial professionals around the United States and likely around the world should be anyways getting out into the community and providing more financial literacy education. It certainly takes a village, right? And when you really look at Black America, many of our households are still being raised by single mothers. And what is the end result of that? When you only have a one-income household, when we're living in a society now where it takes at least 2 full-time jobs, if not more, right? Many of us are noticing that we're living in a gig economy. And where are our fathers? Obviously there's many of our fathers in our homes raising us, working really hard for our futures, but those that aren't there, they're households that are 2 out of 3 families where that father is a convict or incarcerated, right? So 70% of those families were caring for children under 18. And if you talk to anybody that's in that situation, you can kind of tell based off of how they're living their life. It's significantly different than those of us that have been able to go off to college, get a degree, and a decent paying job, right? 1 in 5 of those surveyed were unable to even afford housing due to the loss of that income when their loved one went to jail, okay? So if we really take a look at Black wealth, if the racial wealth divide is left unaddressed, one research study said that a median Black household wealth is on its path to hit 0 by 2053. Now that's extremely significant. So many of us are out here making money, working great paying jobs, but still, as a community, zero by 2053. What are we going to do about that? Now, a woman's worth, okay? Black women in the U.S. are typically paid 61 cents for every dollar paid to white men. And I'll let you know, I left corporate America. I personally was feeling the stress and the oppression of being in that environment myself, and removed myself from it. But so many of us are still working for our families in that environment. And if we're only making 61 cents for every dollar that somebody else is making, how is that going to contribute to our overall ability to build wealth, right? So women's annual earnings compared to white men's, you've got to take a look at this. This is very interesting. So black women in particular, we're making about 8% more than the average Hispanic woman, but even white women are making less than Asian women, right, and compared to white men. We have to ask ourselves that question of why is that? You know, it must not just be the woman. Maybe it's the type of career that they're in. Maybe it's the composition of their households. We don't know. But the idea is that we need to really start looking at where we stand amongst the greater community and figure out how we can start pulling ourselves out. Financial literacy awareness has been around for quite some time. But then again, you don't know what you don't know. So many that were poor and broke, and again, being poor is just a state of mind, right? And being broke is the actual result of being poor. But many of them went to becoming educated and starting to growing their net worth. But if you pay attention to these slides here, that many started sliding back. Now here on the left side, it talks about income gaps. The income gaps for those in the lower quadrant of our society between 1970 and 2018, the incomes only rose just under $9,000, right? But if you look at the upper income households, their income almost doubled over that same time, moving from $126,000 to over $200,000. And the crazy thing is that the share of that income that's coming in over that time frame, when initially most of it was coming to us in Middle America, right? Middle America is really the pillar for this country. Most of us that are paying taxes and keeping the programs running. But as you see now here in 2018, 2020, the lion's share of the income that's being made in this country is going to the upper income earners, right? Business owners, corporate employees, that type of thing. Now, whites in general, their net worth is substantially higher than the rest of the country. You know, obviously that's always really been the case. But the problem that's so scary is that those people that were supposedly given an opportunity to be able to rise above their means, if you look at this slide here on the right, it's showing that they really haven't made much of headway, right? And unfortunately, that's my community. And I came into this industry because I really wanted to see that start changing. I'm tired of always seeing my people at the bottom echelons when it comes to our wealth creation. Now, are we in an equal state of illiteracy, right? And ill being the word that we are financially sick, right? It starts with our frame of thinking, but knowing that Dr. King and many in his era and before worked so hard to see us all rise above where we currently are at, we really haven't moved much in the last 50 years or longer, okay? Now, there's only 41% of black families that are actually homeowners compared to 71% of white families. And the slide here, you know, being in Seattle, we really want to take a look at our local economy. What's really going on with us locally? And even still, with whites making 105, as far as their highest median income here in the Seattle area, still as a black community, for us, it's only 42,000. That's less than half, okay? Now, when it comes to being able to buy homes around here, how much do you think it actually takes to buy a home? Right? The median net worth of somebody that owns a home is almost $1 million, $898,000. But if we're only making on average, or our median income being $42,000, what's the likelihood that very many of us independently will be able to actually ever own a home? Go ahead and look at the rest of these statistics. It's really a sad reminder of just where we are at in our community. But there's a way, right? We need to really think about becoming financial stewards, not just for ourselves, but for our community, right? And here at Black Dot, they really work very hard to provide the necessary resources, professionals, resources, any information that we can utilize to leverage what we currently have as far as our resources and begin building for ourselves. But many times that's going to take us working together as a community, come together, right? Thank you so much for joining us today. Again, this is 15-Minute Financial. The purpose of this segment is just to give you little bite-sized tips and information so that way you can digest it just enough to help you move forward.